Hello and welcome to another A+ 1101 quiz, where I'm going to take you through 5 questions from the A+ 1101 exam, one from every single exam objective, and I'll explain the answers, why what's right is right, why what's wrong is wrong. We'll go through all of the answers, and I'll show you exactly where they come from in relation to the exam objectives as well, so you can get an idea of what you should be studying. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. The first question reads, Tech by Matt Incorporated would like to develop a wearable watch for fitness enthusiasts to track their heart rate and other related information. They want to ensure the device is lightweight and slim. What type of display should they use? A. TN, B. OLED, C. VA, or D. IPS? Pause the video if you need more time. I'm going to get straight to the answer so we can be as efficient as possible. The answer is B. OLED, or generally as you would pronounce it, OLED. So we'll go through why this is right, and we'll talk about the incorrect answers as well. OLED, generally speaking, as outlined in the text here, it's the go-to display technology for fitness wearables. So if you get a question that is asking you what kind of display is this, and they reference any kind of wearable fitness, it's going to be OLED, right? So the individual pixels actually emit light themselves, and it's well suited for heart rate information because it has that high contrast. But don't worry about, writing down it's well suited for heart rate because it has a high contrast so you can see it clearly. Really, all you need to know for this is OLED are used for fitness wearables. Each individual pixel actually lights itself up. It actually emits light as an individual pixel. There's not a backlight that is shining through the display and therefore lighting it up from behind. The pixels themselves are emitting light. And what that means is you can achieve something that's called true black, which I don't have on the slide here. But what that basically means is if the pixel decides to not emit any light, you actually get a realistic representation of what black looks like, unlike other displays. In other displays, the pixel might deactivate, but there's still going to be a slight shade of light coming through from the backlight behind it. You're never going to get a true black, but with an OLED, because the pixels themselves are the ones that emit the light, the individual pixel can simply stop emitting light. There's no backlight behind it, so you'll get a true black. So for this, you basically need to understand OLEDs are generally used for fitness wearables, and they are able to achieve a true black because the individual pixels are the ones that emit light. There's not a backlight, the individual pixels emit light. Now, hopefully that makes sense. We'll go ahead and get straight into the other options here. So another option we had was twisted pneumatic. Now, in relation to this, what you really need to know is twisted pneumatic have the fastest response time. So they're known for their response time. And who are the kind of people that need to have really fast response times? Basically, you're looking at your gamers. So if you're given a scenario that says this display is a gamer is looking for a display that has very fast response time, what should they get? You'd be looking at twisted pneumatic there. It does have poor viewing angles, so you've got to pretty much be sitting in front of the monitor, but that's not too much of an issue if you're a gamer because you're not going to be gaming like off to the side like this. It's just unless you want to intentionally make it more difficult for yourself. So twisted pneumatic, fast response time, that's what it's known for. Then we move on to IPS, or in-plane switching. This is known for having the best color representation. So you're thinking about if you're a graphic designer or if you're a video editor, you're probably going to want to go for in-plane switching because you're going to want to make sure the colors are really accurate on your screen, right? They're actually representing the accurate colors. So if you get a question asking you, a graphic designer or a video editor is looking for a monitor, what should they get? Probably going to be in-plane switching. Of course, you'll have to account for other things such as budget and things to that effect, but in general, best color representation means best for video editors and graphic designers. And the last one is your middleman, which is why I've got this photo. It's the man in the middle. It does okay at everything, but it's not really a specialist at anything. It's VA, vertical alignment. So it's the in-between LCD display. It has good color representation, but it's not as fast as twisted pneumatic, right? So, you still have good color representation. So this might be a case where, your scenario that you're given might be a graphic designer is looking for a monitor to use for accurate color representation. However, they're on a strict budget. Which one should they select? IPS, generally a bit pricey, so probably not that one because they added the budget element in there. So now we can come down to vertical alignment because the color representation is good, but it's not the best at color representation, but it's the next step down. So hopefully that made sense for those questions. These come directly out of exam objective 1.2. So compare and contrast the display components of mobile devices. And it specifically asks you to differentiate between different types of displays. And we talked about our LCD displays, which were the in-plane switching, twisted pneumatic, and vertical alignment. And we also talked about the OLED, or organic light emitting diode, because those individual pixels emit their own light. So that's what we went through. That's from 1.2. And here's a nifty little table for you if you want to take a screenshot of this, maybe draw it out. I don't know if you're feeling artistic, but this is pretty much the basic information about what you're going to need to know about the different types of displays in relation to your exam. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the second question for this quiz. The question reads, you have been asked to configure a network switch using SNMP. What port do you use to do this? A, 25, B, 3389, C, 161, or D, 143. Again, pause the video if you need more time. We'll get straight into it. The answer is C, 161. So this one really requires you to know what protocols are associated with what ports. We've been through that before. I've done questions like this on multiple videos. There's not much more for me to say in relation to being able to accurately tell you how to get good at that question. It's a matter of knowing what protocols go with what ports. But I'll give you a brief rundown of what these protocols are and what ports they operate on for the sake of it, so we're getting something out of it, right? So we got SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, and we've got this photo of this gentleman here taking out his wrench and managing some hardware, and that's because SNMP does basically what is in the name, Simple Network Management Protocol. You're managing the network. So some of those things might involve your network administrators can monitor and manage devices. So you've got cable modems, routers, switches, servers, workstations, and printers. You can do that over the network, right? So honestly, largely, that's pretty much what you're going to need to know. You're just roughly going to need to know that it does that. There is more information and detail there. You can set something called traps so that if a specific thing happens, it sends information to the network administrator, letting them know that that has happened. You get an alert so you can then do something about it, and you can set up protocols surrounding that. But essentially, you just need to know Simple Network Management Protocol operates on port 161 and does everything that we spoke about. The other options, SMTP, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. This is essentially, for your exam, the only mail protocol you need to know related to sending mail. Not receiving it, but sending it. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And the way I remember this, which is why I have this photo of a house with toilet paper all over it, is because I remember TP. If you're going to TP a house, which is like you're throwing toilet paper rolls over it to droop them over and kind of, it's like a prank that you do to people. If you're going to TP a house, you don't catch the toilet paper. You have to throw the toilet paper over the house in order to send it. And that's how I remember that, right? I see TP and I'm like, okay, I have to throw it. If I'm throwing it, I'm not receiving mail, I'm sending it. So SMTP operates on port 25 and is the protocol that you use to send your mail in relation to the A+ 1101 examination. That's what you're going to have to need to know. Now, you can also think of it as this postman, right? Simple man post. I have this image in my head of a lovely older gentleman delivering the mail, putting it in that red box. And I think SMTP, simple man post. He's just a simple man. He's just living a simple life, putting it in the post box. Hopefully one of those mental tricks works for you. Let me know if that helps. Anyway, we'll move on to RDP. It stands for Remote Desktop Protocol, operates on 3389. And this is essentially the protocol that allows you to connect to a Windows device and control it remotely. So you can actually log in and use that computer over the network as if you were actually sitting at the keyboard and mouse and able to move your mouse around on the screen. So the final one is IMAP. Now, we talked about SMTP for sending mail. IMAP is for receiving mail. It's one of two protocols where you'll need to know about for the exam, where you receive mail. We'll go through what it is now exactly. First of all, it operates on port 143, which was in the question. It stands for Internet Message Access Protocol. In short, it is a protocol used to receive mail, and it is the protocol you use to receive mail if you want that mail to be synchronized across all of your devices. So if you want to be able to access your emails on your phone, and then when you go over to your computer and access your emails, it looks the same. Everything's synced up and as it was, and if you change something on your phone and you go over to your computer, that will also be changed on your computer. You're going to want to use IMAP for that. And that is in contrast to the other protocol for receiving mail, which we're not going to go through in this video, but the other protocol, POP3, essentially it is not synchronized, and that's the primary difference between the two. So if you get a question saying, you want to access your device email across multiple devices and have synchronization occur, which protocol should you use? When choosing between POP3 and IMAP, you just need to know that IMAP is the one that synchronizes. That's going to be the key for you to take into the exam relating to this. Now, here is a big overview of all of the ports and protocols and the functions of them that you'll need to know for your exam. It's all laid out for you right there for free. Take a screenshot. Go for it, guys. I recommend study that hard because you'll probably get a couple of questions relating to those. And it's one of the biggest points, the biggest components of the exam that people tend to have issues with from my experience as well. Now that one came from exam objective 2.1, which is basically compare and contrast all of the ports and protocols essentially. You'll also need to know what TCP and UDP is and what the difference between those are. We'll cover that in another video, but you'll basically need to know all these port numbers, all the protocols, and what those protocols do, unfortunately. Now, we'll move on to question 3. We're talking about SATA and speeds. The question reads, which of the following SATA versions should you use if you are looking to achieve data transfer speeds of 6 gigabit per second without spending unnecessary money on a SATA version that will provide higher speeds? A. SATA 1.0, B. SATA 3.0, C. SATA 2.0, or D. SATA 3.2. As usual, pause the video right now if you need time to think about this one. We're going to head into the answer. 3, 2, 1. The answer is B, SATA 3.0. And the reason being is you really just need to know the speeds. And it's very, very annoying because there's so many different cables that you'll need to know the speeds of, right? But it's just what we have to do for the exam. That's one of the biggest complaints. This exam doesn't go super deep, but it covers so much. Right, so you don't need to know specifically exactly how does a SATA cable function, but you do need to know the speeds of the different SATA standards. So I'm going to give you a mind trick to remember this. When you hear the word SATA and you're trying to figure out the speeds, you don't actually have to remember the individual speeds of each one. You only have to remember the speeds of 2, and I'll go through that now. So SATA 1 is 1.5 gigabit per second. From there, it doubles into 3. For SATA 2. Again, it doubles for SATA 3, and only then does it break that pattern of doubling and go to 16. So really, you only need to remember, okay, SATA 1 is 1.5. It doubles, and then it's 16. So think of SATA and speed, just think 1.5 double 16. 1.5 double 16. That's the trick I used anyway. I found that quite helpful. And that one came from exam objective 3.4. Given a scenario, install and configure motherboards, central processing units, and add-on cards. And here we have motherboard connector types. You've got to know about SATA. And you'll notice that is only one small component from everything we need to know. So it gives an idea as to the scope of this exam, which is why I highly recommend getting a resource that lets you break it down into these individual components. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Actually, before we move on, I've got a short word from today's sponsor. This video is interrupted by our sponsor, and that sponsor is me. Did you know I have a learning guide that breaks down the A+ examination by not only exam objective, but by each dot point within that exam objective. And for each dot point within each exam objective, I have comprehensive notes, active recall questions, simple questions with simple answers as well, and learning activities for those areas that I think you really need it in. So if you need some A+ 1101 resources. You're looking for some resources. I'm your guy. Head over to journeytocyber.com and grab some. All right, thanks guys. Back to the video. All right, thanks me. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. This question reads, Margaret is a business owner who needs to manage her company's customer relations. She wants a solution that doesn't require her to set up complex infrastructure or develop software from scratch. Instead, she's looking for a service that provides a ready-to-use application for managing customer data. Which type of cloud service best matches Margaret's requirements? IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, or DaaS? Sorry, D, hybrid cloud. I don't know why I said that. Pause the video if you need more time. The answer is coming up in 3, 2, 1. The answer is SaaS, or as it's pronounced, SaaS. So, SaaS, first of all, we'll go back and look at these three. So basically, these are three different models that describe if you want to hire someone else's hardware, are you hiring only their hardware? Are you hiring their hardware and they're also giving you the operation system with some building blocks to do your own coding, develop your own applications? Or are you paying for a ready-to-use application that's ready to go? You don't even need the hardware itself. It's ready to go. It's running on someone else's hardware. You're just accessing it. So that's what these three represent. And hybrid cloud is really unrelated, but we'll get to that in a moment. So SaaS, or SaaS, essentially is when you have that application ready to use. You don't have to go in and manage the hardware. You don't have to worry about installing the operating system or building the application. It's simply ready to use. And my trick that I used when I was studying this, because I came into this with no IT experience at all before I passed my examinations, the mind trick that I use here, think about the word, SaaS. And if you think about someone who's sassy, what do they want? They want everything, and they want it right now, and they don't want to have to do anything to get it. So as soon as I saw the word SaaS, I had this like image of this woman in my mind, and she comes into the store and she's very sassy, right? She's like, excuse me, I want the best deal I can get. I want everything. I don't want to worry about hardware. I don't worry about building my own platform. I just want you to give me an application, and I want it now. Right? So I had that sassy kind of image of a woman in my head, which is what helped me remember SaaS meant the application was ready to go. Software as a service. It's ready to use. Might help you, might be completely useless. I don't know. You let me know. So the next one was IaaS, which stands for infrastructure as a service. And that's essentially when you are paying for the hardware, right? You're just paying for the hardware. You're going to have to go in and set up the operating system. You're going to have to build the application. Everything that requires any kind of management in relation to the hardware is really on you. You're just paying to use that physical hardware. And finally, PaaS stands for platform as a service. So that is where you're paying for the hardware. Operating system is already installed. There's some building blocks there ready for you to start working on your application. So if you're someone who wants to pay to use some hardware that's ready to go and you want to develop an application on it, you'd be interested in platform as a service. They're giving you a platform on which to build your application. So hopefully that made sense. The final option was hybrid cloud, and that's actually a separate exam objective. That comes into comparing public cloud, private cloud, community cloud, and hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is essentially a cloud version that is a combination of either public, private, and community. So for example, you might have a combination of public and private cloud infrastructure. So you're using private cloud to keep your really, really valuable data on lock at your own premises. You've paid for the hardware, you own it, but everything that isn't super private, you might want to be more economical and get a better deal in terms of how much money you're spending and put that on a public cloud, because that's going to be a lot cheaper for you. So that would be an example, but we'll go more in depth into those three in a future video, but I've also done it in past videos as well. So that being said, that one was from exam objective 4.1. So that one says summarize cloud computing concepts. That's always an easy one. You just have to summarize it. You just have to know what it is. So we had these three here is what we went through, and one of those options was also hybrid cloud we went through briefly. But again, we'll cover that more in depth in future videos, and we have covered that more in depth in previous videos too. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get back to the next and final question for this exam. Let's go. The question reads, Ahmed's computer keeps losing track of the date and time settings, causing discrepancies in his work. Despite repeatedly setting the correct date and time, the issue persists. What is the most likely problem behind this recurring symptom? A. Capacitor swelling. B. Application crash. C. Dead CMOS battery. Or D. Black screen. I'll take a sip, and if you need to pause the video, go ahead, then we'll get to the answer. Okay, let's find the answer. The answer is C, a dead CMOS battery. So the CMOS battery is essentially a little tiny battery inside your device, which is responsible for when your device turns off, it keeps its own battery running enough to keep track of the date and time. So if that dies, the date and time will stop being updated in real time, essentially. So if date and time is off, you've got your CMOS battery, it probably needs to be replaced. So we also had capacitor swelling as an issue. Capacitor swelling is generally going to cause a popping noise, is going to be an indication that is going to tell you, all right, the capacitor is probably swelling, it's probably time to replace that. And you have a visual representation here thanks to edonyx.com. Thanks guys, just googled an image for that one. You have a good one over here, which you can see there's no visible swelling, and then you've got bad ones over here, which are clearly pretty much ready to burst. So if you hear a popping noise, or the exam asks you what is a popping noise a sign of, you can pretty confidently say capacitor swelling. Now, another one was application crashes. Application crashes aren't going to cause your time and date to drift, but if you do have an application crash, you're using an application and it crashes, you can check the event log. That will give you a log of events that have occurred within that specific application, and will tell you exactly what has happened, what caused the issue, when it happened, which can help you narrow it down a little bit. So that's something you can do as a troubleshooting step there. And finally, we had a black screen. Black screen could be a result of any issues. The cables might not be plugged in correctly. The input setting might be set incorrectly. It could be a faulty monitor. It's essentially going to be a matter of eliminating the individual variables and seeing what the exact problem is. Try a different cable on that monitor. Try that same cable that you originally used on that monitor on a different one. If the other monitor works, then that means the cable wasn't the issue, it was something else, and just eliminate those variables one by one. There's some more on the screen here, but that's pretty much, that's the gist of it for a black screen. Now this one came from Exam Objective 5.2. Given a scenario, troubleshoot problems related to motherboards, RAM, CPU, and power. And the troubleshooting ones are what most people often have the most issues with, because it is so complex, and you need to be able to see, okay, this is what's happening. These are the issues it could be causing, that could be causing it. How do I troubleshoot to make sure that I can find the correct issue and then solve the problem? There's a lot of moving parts going on, so people tend to struggle a little bit with that. Now, if you have enjoyed this video and you found it useful, head over to journeystocyber.com, where I have, as stated here, the only products you'll need to pass your A+ exam that you need to pay for. So I've got two. I have my learning guide, which is broken down by exam objective. You can see here, you've got 1.1 and then 1.2 and then 1.3, and it also breaks it down by the individual dot points within that exam objective. And for each of those, you get comprehensive notes and some questions and active recall questions there for you as well. I also have my 5 practice exams, which gives you 5 practice exams, each of which contains performance-based questions as well. I've got really good reviews on the learning guide. People are loving that. They're eating it up. I highly recommend the practice exams as well, but people are specifically loving the learning guide. That seems to be the go-to one. So here we've got 1. Your notes helped me pass my test today. Beautiful. The guide's really good. It's helped me make everything a lot clearer. I've scanned through the questions. It looks like good content. Your learning guide is goated. That's my favorite one. It's goated. I love goats. I don't comment a lot, but it definitely helps with organized information and helps me piece things together more easily. Thank you so much. So look, as you can see, people think it's going pretty good. I've also got my performance-based questions simulations. You can actually click on these little buttons and try to solve these issues. That's there as well. So other than that, that's journeytocyber.com. I will see you in the next video. See you next time. Bye, guys.